Looking to go beyond the headlines on North Korea? Join the West Coast Exchange 2026, a Chatham House Rules invitation-style gathering for the global North Korea professional community, taking place from September 17th to the 19th. Hosted by NK Pro of Career Risk Group, the event brings together analysts, diplomats, former negotiators, military experts and researchers for candid discussions, field visits and real exchange, including a visit to Ikibong Observatory on the inter-Korean border. Confirmed speakers include the Mole, who went undercover for a decade in North Korea, a former US ambassador to South Korea, a Blue House official who was in charge of the Inter-Korean Military Pact, journalists who visited North Korea a dozen times, and a former South Korean Special Warfare Commander. Early bird tickets are now open, with discount for NK Pro and NK News members. Space is limited to just 80 paying guests, so claim your seat soon. Welcome back to the NK News podcast. Today is Monday, May 25th, and we are recording in our studio in Seoul. This week, we're talking about a really rare inter-Korean sporting moment that put football, politics and sanctions all on the same pitch. North Korea's Naegohyang women's football team travelled to South Korea for the AFC Women's Champions League semi-finals, the first visit by a North Korean sports delegation to the South in nearly 8 years, and the first by a North Korean football team in 12 years. The match drew thousands of spectators in terrible, heavy rain, including our very own Jooheon Kim, who's joining me today to unpack it all. Hi, Jooheon.
Thanks for having me.
So let's go back to the very beginning. We'll start with the team's arrival. Naegohyang landed at Incheon International Airport on Sunday the 17th with 27 players, 12 coaching staff. They were greeted by reporters and civic groups. You were one of those reporters there at the airport. Why was Naegohyang's arrival in South Korea so significant?
As you mentioned, this is their first time to visit Seoul in 8 years. I think it was 2018 when the table tennis team came over to Seoul, and it's been 12 years since the 2014 Asian Games. And also, this is after Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, declared that South and North Korea are two separate hostile states. Mm-hmm. But they still sent a soccer team to Suwon, a South Korean city. So I think it's still very meaningful.
Right, absolutely. And what was the atmosphere like at the airport?
A lot of reporters were shocked. There were more than 70 reporters, both from the local and foreign media, and a lot of them were asking. We were just shouting, asking them, "Hey, how do you feel about coming here? Please tell us about your strategy." But none of them answered our questions, and they just got on the bus within like 10 minutes. So, yeah,
if listeners haven't seen those videos, they came out of the arrival so very stoic, looking straight ahead.
Right.
I don't think they made eye contact with anybody.
No facial expression at all.
Right. Take a listen to some footage shot by the NK News team at Incheon International Airport as the Naegohyang team arrived. And as well as the reporters, there were these civic groups kind of cheering for the team. So did they interact with those groups at all?
Yeah, they were cheering for the North Korean team, but obviously they were not really responding. The cheering groups were sponsored by the ROK government, Unification Ministry.
We are going to get into a little bit more about those cheering groups in a minute, but I also want to ask you about the exception that the Unification Ministry had to make to allow this team to enter South Korea. Tell us a bit more about that.
So the unification minister had to approve the Naegohyang team to come over to South Korea, and they were using their passports, according to Rock Media. And technically, because North Korea is part of the South Korean territory under the Rock Constitution, I thought they could just come in as South Korean national citizens as well. But they were using their passport this time. I think that kind of reflects the two-state theory that Kim Jong-un mentioned. And Unification Minister Chung Dong-young also previously stated that he respects the North Korean regime. So probably, that's indicates that both Chung and Kim, they're recognizing the two Koreas as separate states.
Right, so they had to get that special permission to come to Korea.
Right.
And again, Jooheon, as you said, this comes at a time when, North Korea has said again and again it has no interest in any kind of dialogue with South Korea. So it is quite significant in that sense. Let's talk about those cheering groups again. Seoul actually funded those cheering groups to support the North Korean team, obviously because no North Korean supporters could come. Tell us what we know about that.
So sponsoring basically. It was about 300 million Korean won, so I guess that's about 200,000 US dollars. And basically it's for the cheering groups to support both the South Korea Suwon FC and the Naegohyang team. Yeah, so I think it's related to the Lee Jae-myung administration's engagement policy toward North Korea instead of provoking the regime like the Yoon Suk-yeol did.
Again, highlighting how E is trying to maybe use this as an opportunity, like you said, Jooheon, to engage. Before the semi-final, Naegohyang's head coach and captain also appeared before reporters in Suwon, and this was obviously a really rare opportunity for foreign media to ask questions directly to members of a North Korean sports team. What did the head coach Ri Yu-il say, and how carefully did he handle questions?
I think the most interesting question from reporters was when someone asked, how do you feel about 3,000 cheering groups supporting you guys? And the head coach did not really answer. I mean, he said they're just here to focus on the match, and the cheering groups are not something his team should consider. So, and he refused a lot of questions, something like that, and mostly talked about the soccer matches and their strategies and etc.
So probably no surprises there, very carefully crafted answers. And did anything stand out to you from that press conference?
Anything? I think it was after after they defeated the Japanese team. So it was a few days ago, and the head coach was a little offended by one of the questions from a South Korean reporter because he didn't he didn't call the DPRK by its official name. He called it the Northern Side. Like he didn't ask anything provocative, but just because of that, the terminology, he refused to answer that question, and they just left the press conference spot.
Okay, interesting.
Right away.
So a little bit of context for listeners. This is a subsequent press conference because, of course, North Korea beat the Japanese side in that in that final on Saturday. So we will move on now to the game against Suwon FC. Fortunately, the weather was not ideal. Everybody got absolutely drenched. I felt so bad for you guys having to cover it. And I felt bad for the players and the fans too, because nobody wants to watch a football match in that kind of rain. But walk us through the match. How did Naegohyang win it?
How they won it? So I think they were very stable in terms of both defense and attack. I'm not really a soccer expert, but they seemed very stable overall. And I think the captain Kim Kyung-young, I think she scored in both semifinals and finals, and she became the MVP for this year's AFC. She did really well. I think overall they just moved like the North Korean army, I would describe.
And the final score was 2-1, right? So I think going in
against Suwon FC.
Yes, so going into it, I know that the North Korean teams were the favourite, but it sounded like it was a much more exciting match probably than people anticipated. Were there any standout players?
I would say Kim Kyung-hyung. Yeah, she was basically leading the entire team.
What does Naegohyang's performance tell us about the strength of North Korean women's football?
I have talked to some sports experts about this. They all move together just like the North Korean military does. And if they lose the ball, they would all they have their own strategy to handle that kind of situations. So very I can't really describe it exactly, but like it seemed like a very military wise tactic type of
Interesting.
soccer.
And so, of course, on the pitch, it was a football match, but off the pitch, something a bit more complicated. More than 5,700 spectators still came to Suwon Sports Complex despite the terrible weather. About 3,000 were part of that joint cheering squad that we talked about, organised by civic and inter-Korean exchange groups with support from the Unification Ministry.
Yeah.
Jooheon, what was the atmosphere like in the stadium?
So it was raining a lot, but we were not. We couldn't really use an umbrella because if we hold the umbrella, like it could hurt other spectators. So we were not allowed to use it. We just had to get our raincoats. So it was freezing that night, obviously. Yeah, but a lot of the South Korean spectators and a lot of international, like foreign spectators too, they were cheering for Naegohyang, and I haven't seen that many Suwon FC fans. There were some, but I think it was mostly I heard a lot of Naegohyang from the audience.
Okay,
spectators,
interesting. So a real mix of foreign fans, South Korean fans, but you felt like it was mostly they were cheering for the North Korean side.
Yeah, because I was sitting with the Inter Korea Athletics, the sports association, which they claim to host a lot of youth sports events with the North Korean side before when the relations were relatively okay. Yeah, so yeah, they're pursuing inter Korean dialogue exchanges. So yeah, mostly Naegohyang fans.
How did those cheering teams work in practice? Like, I know that you mentioned that they were funded to cheer for both sides, but were they cheering mostly for the North Korean side, for the South Korean side? How did that work?
They're supposed to. I mean, like when the Unification Ministry released the statements, they were basically they were not just supporting the North Korean team. It's just a joint, cheering group. They can also support Suwon FC, but since a lot of them pursue engagements with the DPRK side, I think they were just cheering for Naegohyang.
And what kind of cheers, like what kind of chants did you hear?
Just shouting Naegohyang or mostly. I don't know like how North Koreans cheer for their own team. I think it's like 조선 이겨라, which means victory for 조선, DPRK.
Here's a clip from the match in Suwon where you can hear the cheering crowds. Do you think any of the North Korean players like noticed the cheering squads or noticed any of the fans or engaged or heard any of that cheering?
I couldn't really tell if they were paying attention to us, to the crowds at all. And like I said during the press conferences, the head coach kept saying, we were just trying to like focus on soccer matches. Yeah.
So probably even if they were able to hear those cheerings, you know, their goal was, of course, playing football.
Also, there's another interesting moment from the press conference. So the Suwon FC's captain, she described the North Korean team.
And June, sorry, this is the press conference before the match.
Right, right. She described it as very violent, very tough, and they also swear a lot. And I think the head coach kind of responded to that. He said he didn't really like the expression, the tough. Yeah. the tough.
So the captain was saying
toughness.
going into this match, this is our playing style. We're really tough. We swear on the pitch. And then the head coach.
So the so he mentioned that after the press conference with Suwon FC, it was another separate press conference. But the South Korean reporter was asking, I think the match against Japan would be very tough. How do you feel about that? And he did say, I don't think the word tough is a right expression. And then he kept going, but I think that was very interesting.
Interesting, yeah, absolutely. Did you talk to anyone in the stands? Did you talk to any of the fans? What did you hear from people that were there?
I talked to one of the spectators from the northern part of the Korean Peninsula. So this was before North DPRK was established. He says he felt like he's meeting people from his hometown. So he was there and he really supported Lee Jae-myung administration. I think he's very progressive. Yeah, this soccer match could contribute to the inter-Korean dialogue.
Well, it sounds like for many people there, the score was almost secondary to the fact that, of course, the North Korean team was playing in South Korea at all. It was kind of a historic moment. But the cheering that we've just described also became quite controversial. I'll just reiterate, the South Korean government allocated about 300 million won, about $215,000 from the Inter-Korean Exchange Fund to support the civic groups that were organising these cheering squads. This did draw some criticism from the opposition, and even some people supportive of sports exchanges questioned whether the crowd atmosphere was fair to Suwon FC. Why did the government fund cheering groups for this match? And what did the Unification Ministry say it was hoping to achieve by doing this?
I mean, Unification Minister Chung Dong-young just wrote in his Facebook post that this could be a small, this could create a small chance to improve the relations with North Korea. So I think, yeah, I mean, like since Lee Jae-myung took office, I think they were always, putting a lot of emphasis on dialogue and talks. So I think that was their motive. That was one of their main reasons to sponsor those cheering groups. But also at the same time, the North Korean side was not really responding to us. So there's a lot of criticism, skeptics saying, what's the meaning of those, funds?
So from the government's perspective, this was a chance, and a really rare chance, to try and engage with North Korea. What did the opposition politicians criticize exactly? What were they saying is wrong with this funding?
Why would you support the enemy state's team? That was the main idea.
The gist of it. Now, some critics, of course, said that the cheering made Suwon feel the away team in its own stadium. And it's interesting from what we've discussed so far, Jooheon, it sounds like that, yeah, most of the cheering was for the North Korean side. Do you think that was a fair criticism?
I think South Korea is a free country, right? Democracy, freedom of expression are guaranteed. So I think it's okay to support whatever team you want, whichever team you want. But considering like North Korea is still working on nuclear missile programs, I understand where the opposition is coming from. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
And just as politics.
Yes, there's so many layers to it. Now, Jooheon, this match fits into a much longer history of women's football between the two Koreas, and it's a rivalry North Korea has largely dominated. South Korea has won only one of 19 senior women's matches against the North since 1990, while the DPRK has been especially strong at the youth level. And it's fair to say North Korean's women's soccer, it's renowned, especially at the youth group. They're winning left, right, and centre. Why are North Korea so strong in women's football?
So I think one of the I'm not sure if he's a coach, but one of the staff members, Mr. Hyun, director, I think. He, according to one of the South Korean experts, he founded he didn't really found it, but he was training those North Korean women's soccer players for over 10 years. So since they were very young, and they were all trained together since then. So I think they really focus on the female team.
Right. Like a lot of sports in North Korea, I think that the goal is finding, athletes young and training them from that very, very young age. How important is women's football to North Korea's international image?
AFC, FIFA, so I think they're trying to make a very good impression of themselves through women's soccer teams, which they're really good at.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And of course, there's always the propaganda aspect of this too. Anytime they have a win, North Korea can use it in their state media. And we report on it all the time, and they highlight how well the women's team does. And even I think it was last year. I'll have to double check. But Kim Jong-un met the female players who won. I think it was the AFC under-20s, but I will double check that. Fact check. North Korea did celebrate its under-20 Women's World Cup win at the highest level in late 2024. State media reported that Kim Jong-un met the team at the Workers' Party headquarters after their tournament victory, calling it a patriotic achievement that brought joy to the country. He also praised standout player Chae Il-sun, who won both the Golden Ball as the tournament's best player and the Golden Boot as top scorer, as well as coach Ri Sung-ho. The cabinet later hosted a banquet for them, with Premier Kim Tok-hun delivering remarks. Naegohyang, they beat Suwon 2-1. They went on to play this Japanese team in the final. They beat them as well, so they won the AFC Champions League. This win has raised a more technical but very obviously important issue, which is prize money. The AFC Women's Champion League winner receives $1 million. This is creating a big sanctions question because a North Korean team has won that $1 million. Why could AFC prize money for Naegohyang raise this sanctions concern?
The UN Security Councils, they, according to their sanctions, international organizations are not supposed to pay the North Korean side because they could use it for nuclear and missile programs. So, giving them money could cause another issue.
What do UN sanctions say about North Koreans earning income abroad?
Also, there's one of the sanctions. It states that North Koreans working overseas, they need to return to their home country by 2019. So, but I'm not sure if the sports events falls under that. Yeah, if this is considered one of the labor, overseas labor as well. But that's why it's getting very tricky. But if the North Korean Naegohyang's team is related to the North Korean military, if anyone can prove that, that could be against sanctions as well.
Right, exactly. I think that a lot of the issues that arise with sanctions is there is so much grey area, right? Does this constitute as overseas workers? How do we categorize this? What do we know about Naegohyang's possible links to North Korea's military or state-linked business networks?
It's organized by one of the North Korean conglomerates, if I'm correct, and there could be a link, but no one has really proven this yet.
Okay, and has the AFC commented on how it would handle this?
I have reached out to AFC, but they have not responded yet.
Okay, so nothing concrete. And what precedent could this set for future North Korean participation in international sports competitions?
But I think this is just my take. I think they can hold funds, and then they can probably use them for expenses for next matches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so one way to kind of
right
pay out the prize money without potentially violating
right, just to make sure
sanctions.
they are using it for sports events.
Well, as I mentioned, Naegohyang did win that semi-final. They went on to win the final on Saturday. They defeated Japan's Tokyo Verdy Beleza 1-0 in Suwon again to win the AFC Women's Champions League title, raising not only sporting headlines but also the sanctions questions over the tournament's $1 million prize. Jooheon, walk us through that final. How did Naegohyang beat Tokyo Verdy Beleza?
Well, I think it was 1-0. The Naegohyang team, I think Kim Kyung-young, the captain, scored there again. And she became the MVP.
MVP, yeah, well deserved. You mentioned that there was an interesting press conference before that match, and the captain, not the captain, the head coach, had something interesting to say.
So the question from a South Korean reporter was, the match against the Tokyo team would be very tough, just like South Korea, the South Korean team playing against Japanese because of the historical issues. Korea was colonized by Japan for about 36 years. So I guess he was trying to find something in common with the North. We were both colonized by the Japanese imperialism, but he didn't really like the term. No, he didn't fully understand the question because the reporter used a South Korean expression, which is 한일. I know in English, we just use Korea for both North and South Korea, but in the South Korean language, Korea is 한국, and so in North Korea it's Joseon, which is the old dynasty of Korea. But I mean, North Korea started using the word 한국 very recently after the two states theory. But I think the head coach was still not familiar with the words 한국, right? So I guess it would make sense for him to say 남조선 versus 일본, which is South Korea. They're still used to 남조선, South Joseon, South Korea. So that was very, and then he was asking the report, what does 한일전 mean, sir? So that I think overall we could understand the North Korean sides, but I would say that's a tiny bit of language barrier between the two. And if the two Koreas are separated more than 100 years, even more than that, then I think the linguistic gap could get wider as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, bigger picture, does Naegohyang's title make future inter-Korean sporting exchanges more likely, or do you think that this was basically just kind of a one-off?
Because they were not showing any reaction, we can't really expect this to improve or improve like relations between the two Koreas. But it's obvious that North Korea is also interested in international sports events, and especially soccer. So if something like this happens again, I think there would be a rematch between the two.
Jooheon, one final question. So you covered the airport arrival, the press conference, the match, the crowd response. What was one moment that you think best captured the meaning of this visit for you?
At the airport. They were not really answering without any facial expression. But when I watch their training through YouTube, like they were smiling and they were just acting like normal human beings, right? So that was a little bit ironic. I thought they didn't have any emotion when I first saw them at the airport. But I don't really know, like if international events like this becomes more common, and if there's more opportunities for the South Korean side to interact with them, then probably there could be some type of interaction. Yeah.
Well, that was Jooheon Kim speaking with us about Naegohyang Women's FC's rare visit to South Korea and the complicated mix of football, politics and sanctions surrounding the match. You can read the full coverage at NK News, and of course I'm going to link all the articles in the episode's show notes. Thanks so much for joining me today, Jooheon.
Thanks for having me.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Our thanks to Brian Betts and David Choi for helping make this podcast happen. For more reporting, analysis and expert insight on North Korea, visit NK News for the latest stories and NK Pro for deeper analysis, data and research tools. You can also watch this episode on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social media for the latest updates, clips and behind-the-scenes content. I'm Alana Hill, thank you for listening, and we'll be back next time with more on the stories shaping North Korea.